morning, all. Welcome to our finance meeting. We're ready to call the meeting to order. So, first thing, it's been 2.5 years since I've been sitting here, so some people that's good news, some people that's bad. We're going to take the good, bad, and the ugly, whatever it is, but it's all going to be about performance and how the county goes forward. This is what this is all about. So, I've done some research on 10 years of data, actually gone back 30 years, but 10 years more specifically. And so I've prepared a kind of a statement as to where we've been, how we got where we are, and how we can hopefully take the board to a level where we look differently in how we move forward. So far, there's a lot of paperwork you're going to get from me later, either in an email today or tomorrow. It's going to show you where the staffing pattern is, where the actual payroll is, and you'll get to realize how well our department heads have done in actually putting us directly onto an austerity budget without any work of our own. They understand the situation. They've been down this path before, and when we work with them, we all win. And so I want to give them all credits and kudos to them. And it's going to make this job a lot easier. Hopefully, I'm looking at a department head meeting tomorrow where I let everybody get a week back into actual business, and we're going to move forward from there. So what you're going to get later from me today will be a 10-year trend. I'm just going to read you the statement, and then we're going to go right into the actual agenda. I want to start with an overview of where we are and where we have been. What has happened in the past after the 2008 economic crisis, its effect on our revenues from the state, effect on assessed values, and how that relates to our taxing situation. I'm starting with 2 sheets to exemplify exactly what I'm referring to and highlight the changes. The whole idea is to show why our approach needs to be different in order for our results to be different. In the past, our mantra to our department heads was you will get what you need, not necessarily everything you want. After all, we are in a rich county, and we need to live within our means. But let's not put down our wonderful Washington County. Let's grow within our means, intelligent growth that makes sense and leaves our citizens better off. Honestly, our Board of Supervisors are all fiscally conservative. There is not a Republican or Democrat demographic. Where we fall short is everyone pulling in the same direction for the greater cause of Washington County. Some supervisors in the past have gone as far as to label the county as the problem. But with the crisis from COVID-19, we are going to realize we will need to work together or we're going to die separately. When the 2018 crisis came, Whitehall was facing the opportunity of being the home of a Walmart retail store that would have been huge for Whitehall and Washington County. If we had been fully engaged as a county to push through the kind of water and sewer infrastructure 2 years prior, we may have come to fruition. Instead, it was pulled completely off the table. Over in Fort Edward, it was well known that the dewatering facility was going to go away after 10 years. And it was no secret. Even with advance notice, Fort Edward was not able to turn the tide fast enough to keep from financial instability. However, again, we had our chances. Fort Edward has a track record of creative thinking. I understand completely every time I walk into Market 32. I recognize their capabilities, but I also remember an insurmountable deadline for the Fort Edward Village for infrastructure funding that would have provided a sewer and water line project that would have enabled Irving Tissue at the time to increase their capacity by 40%. The lack of working together made the timetable extremely tight because our economic development coordinator was under direction of the Board of Supervisors to do county work. And getting the county and the village to work together wasn't actually doing what it should do. To this day, we are still trying to secure some of that funding, and of course the costs have gone up, and we're having trouble getting there. How much better would Fort Edward community be with Irving Tissue expanded and WL Plastics on the way? It would be a game changer, folks. Where would Washington County's value be if it was at $6 million instead of flailing at $5 million? What does that do to our tax rate? what would our tax rate equation be right now? A 20% difference in valuation would be a 20% drop in actual tax rate. So the blame game needs to end. Let's align our thoughts and do whatever is better for Washington County. There isn't a business in our county that hasn't taken risks to grow the business here. We need to be behind them to help them grow at a sustainable rate. Where we have two higher populous communities of Whitehall and Fort Edward suffering from county inaction, is it by design? County government has inadvertently failed Whitehall and Fort Edward. We can do better. Do we care so much about our individual towns that we won't work together to make the county better? According to our assessed valuations and the sheets that I'm going to provide, in 1990 to 2000, we more than doubled in valuation. In 2000 to 2010, we more than doubled in valuation. But then the housing crunch came in 2008. So we were a little bit lagging behind on the 2010 numbers because a lot of us were doing revals because everything was going up. So 2010, a lot of those came online and our valuations were the highest when we were actually already headed down. So it was 15 by the time the county bottomed out. In 2020, we weren't quite back there. Our tentative for 2021's budget, the tentative's just done now with all the grievances in and Article 78 and all that, not to be scheduled for another month. We're not going to be much different than our 2010 numbers were when we get right down to the actual, more than likely. Really, we're no longer than no stronger than our weakest link. It makes no sense in Washington County for Whitehall and Fort Edward to be our weakest economic links. With the populations they have, we have to do better by them to do better as a county. But we have to do it working together. It's the only way we can really get there. The bottom line is working together strengthens projects and lowers costs. Over the past year and a half, I was chairman of Intercounty of the Adirondacks, a member of the Adirondack Park Local Review Board, as well as attending meetings in the Adirondack Association of Towns and Villages. Under the thumb of the Adirondack Park Agency, these groups can accomplish things that are nearly impossible. Why? Because they must work together to accomplish anything for the greater good. We do not have the impact of the APA on our abilities here, but we also lack the dynamic they have up there. I hope we can bring that to Washington County Board of Supervisors. There's no time like the present. So let's move forward to 2019 with a budget that perfectly mirrored our 5-year capital plan. Perfect timing to move in that direction. The economy was better. The return of bankable interest gave us a funding stream. I remember how excited we all were to have planned that though it could only live on new money, it was sustainable at a rate that would grow over time as the economy and interest rates headed north. Well, now here we sit today in June of 2020. Everything has changed because of a global pandemic. We all realize that all the hard work that went into our 2020 budget has now turned upside down. We must find a way to tighten our budget short term, regroup long term, and probably start over on the capital plan when our interest income returns. We will discuss those things later in the meeting. We're going to go back to our net cost basis so we can all realize where we're at, where we've been, and how we're going to get there. Right now, I'm currently working with the treasurer trying to put net cost back into every facet, whether it be budget or actual. The actuals are always there. They have to be there. If we can put it back into budget, we can compare them at the time and relate year to year. The problem is 2020, when we look back, is going to be such an anomaly. It's going to be hard to work around because we don't even know where it's going yet the rest of the year. So we all have philosophies on how we're going to accomplish all this. And the capital plan more than likely is going to, go by the wayside until that income from bankable interest returns. But the goal in mind is in survival mode, we need to do the least amount of harm and the most amount of good and remember to methodically tear down, because eventually we always have to build back. We should look for an approach that is targeted and well-intended, and let's move Washington County forward to reach its full potential, and I think we can do this. And I'm looking for effort from everyone. Money's a big object here, folks. We understand that, but it's going to be our effort that decides how we get there more than it's going to be the money. So I'm going to leave you with that. You're going to get a lot of information in the next day or two, and we're going to go right into the agenda now. And I guess Matt Hicks has got to call his personnel committee to order, and we will go from there.
So I will call the personnel committee meeting to order. A couple things to discuss. The first thing on the agenda is the procedure for backfills, and then there's some backfills for today. So they're two different things. We're going to be able to talk about the backfills in the Department of Public Works, Buildings and Grounds, and Office for the Aging. Today with this group, I want to get feedback from everybody, and we've got Matt, and we've got Deb, and we've got Gina on the call to be able to talk about these things. But the first thing I want to talk about is how we're going to work forward with staffing pattern and backfill requests for 2020. In the past, if the department head wanted to backfill, they would bring it to Melissa. Melissa would check it for civil service. It would come to the personnel committee, and there'd be 5 of us who would decide up or down to backfill it or not. I'd like to make a suggestion that I'd like to get feedback from the board on today to consider changing that for this year because of the unusual circumstances, in that when there's going to be a backfill, and I'm just going to pick on Deb because she's right in the middle of the screen right now, but if Deb's got a backfill in Public Works, Melissa and I have spoken about perhaps you should bring that to Public Works Committee first. Have the Public Works Committee vet that. Ask all the questions. Where is it? What's it for? Do we need to do it now? And get that all aired out ahead of time. If the Public Works Committee then decides it's something they like to do, it gets moved to personnel. Then personnel would do their normal thing, and then it would move on. It wouldn't come to finance, or it wouldn't come to the full board unless it was a staffing pattern change. That's a little different. It's one more layer to deal with and one more step of vetting to make sure we're all comfortable with that. So that being said, that's a proposal I'd like to consider, at least for the rest of 2022, that we bring backfills through the corresponding committee prior to personnel. Anybody have any feedback on whether they think it's a good idea or a bad idea? Dave?
Matt, I think that the financial situation we're in is that we're going to have to be reviewing everything and looking at it very closely and see what the impact of the budget is, and we don't even know what the impact of the budget is. So I think the procedure is the correct one for this point, and we need to make sure that we are evaluating every position we backfill. Not only should we, but how does it impact the duties that person has? Can those be shifted off? There's a way to combine with other positions. And when we fill that position, because if we have a lag in a season where people really aren't busy, I shouldn't say busy, aren't quite as loaded as they are in other parts of the question would be, can we wait to fill that a month or 2 months to help the budget out? So I think that's the right track to take at this point in time. Just my feelings.
Okay, Deb, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, am I off mute? Okay, I just wanted to ask, is there any indication that we're going to go back to regularly scheduled meetings? Because that could affect how we are able to bring the requests forward. Like where it would fall in a timeline of a month.
I don't have an answer for that. I would certainly like to be able to transition back to regular meetings, even if it's through Zoom for a while, to be able to get this procedure working efficiently. So that if there's enough things on the DPW agenda, Jay can call a meeting. If there's like 1 or 2 things, he can wait a little bit. But if backfills are really important, you tell Jay. Jay says, I better call a meeting, and we handle it there. We can still do the backfills through Zoom meetings, wouldn't you think?
We are.
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I just thought that if we had to do it this way and there wasn't a personnel meeting for a couple of months, it would affect our department.
We're going to try to get back to do that as much as we possibly can.
Okay.
Anybody else? I already called on you, Dave. Put your hand down. Okay, I guess I got to call on him, don't I? Isn't it?
Yeah, I guess
all right, go ahead, Dave.
That's a rule.
Okay. One of the reasons we made the personnel committee smaller was the flexibility we provide, so if they needed to call a meeting, they would only have to have 3 members there to call a meeting, have a quorum. So that's why we purposely made it smaller, so we could have that flexibility and do just what we're talking about.
Okay, so I'd like to suggest that as department heads need to do things with backfills, they first go to the committee chair, discuss it with their committee chair, then bring it to Melissa, have it vetted through her civil service, and then it be discussed in that committee before it comes to personnel. Is everyone okay with that? Has anyone got a problem with that? I see a lot of heads nodding, so I think we're okay there.
We need a resolution.
Melissa's got a question for you.
Melissa does? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make one suggestion is that maybe the department heads could come to me prior to going to their committee. Because if they're looking for a new position or something, I want them to have all the correct information before they bring it forward to their committee.
Okay, so department heads go to Melissa first, and then to the committee chair, and then to the committee. And then when we have a personnel committee meeting, that committee chair would then be able to advocate based on what his committee decided to do on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. We good there?
I think that would be great.
Okay. Since we haven't gone through that, I'm sorry, Sue.
Unmute.
Matt, so the committee meetings would go back to normal so each department would have their own committee meetings so that we could, is that what we're trying to decide, yes or no?
That we
Or-
would like to transition to, yes. This
Yes.
would be a catalyst to get us there a little quicker.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be special meetings, it would just be normal meetings.
Correct.
Thank you.
That being said, and since there are issues we need to deal with now, we're gonna try to vet the Department of Public Works, Buildings and Grounds, and Officers of the Aging backfill issues here and now to see if we can get these taken care of, and then we'll go back to the system we just talked about going forward. So Department of Public Works has, it looks to be 5 different things happening, but some of them are dominoes. So Deb, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat and say the first item that's come up is the Highway Worker 2 backfill, which is currently vacant. Have you talked to Melissa about this already?
Yes. Yep, so ultimately this boils down to 3 Highway 2, which is the truck driver backfills. That's basically what all of this is saying. One of them is because of a domino effect, and 2 of them are because of personnel leaving.
So you're looking to backfill 3 Highway Worker 2 positions?
Yes, ultimately, yes.
Okay.
So we have had 2 people leave the department. And ultimately, long story short, that has ended up in the Ford Ann barn being only at 50%. So that means there's a truck parked in Fort Ann as a general rule, because there's only 2 trucks in Fort Ann. There's also a retirement, which dominoes down to another highway worker, and that we haven't decided exactly where that will come from yet.
Okay. Jay, do you have any input on, do you want to move this? Do you want to move forward with discussing this?
I'll move it, yep. To backfill the 3 highway positions.
You want to run this through finance?
Yeah, well,
Finance committee votes on this and not just personnel. I think it's probably more.
Yeah, well, I wanted to discuss this a little bit. Right now, our CHIP
I'll second
funding,
it for discussion.
what's that?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
Dave's gonna say. So, right now, we're looking at, our CHIPS money finally came in. We finally have a number. There's an opportunity there to basically save $1.3 million, give or take. And it could be less. It's according to how much paving we do, how much whatever we do, how much of our actual own county dollars go in. Either way, it's a relatively large amount of less paving. I understand the backfills, and I know we need them when we're plowing snow, but if we're gonna pave this much less, I think we could wait and look at that in September to get people back in and train for winter plowing. I just think that we're looking, Al's gonna talk to this later, we're looking at anywhere from $1.5 million to $5 million shortfall in sales tax We're also looking at cash flow problems from DSS settlement. We need to salvage where we can, and this is a case where, as I talked before about doing less harm, people that we didn't hire aren't hurt because we didn't lay anybody off, we didn't get rid of the jobs, and at the point we can bring them back and have them ready for snow season, by then hopefully the economy has come partway back and we're not still in the same situation we're in today. So it would be my belief that we probably should just hold off on that. And we have other decisions that we need to make today on our funding that I would like to really know where we're going to be at before we decide just how many more people we're going to hire, because anybody through attrition is a big savings to our unemployment bill and everything else. That's where I'm at. I'm going to go to Jay Skelly right now.
Yeah, that's why I agree with what Matt said, that, you know, when we're looking ahead, the committees really need to vet out some of this stuff. In Deb's support, the Fort Ann one, if she's at 50% now and the other guy calls in sick, then there's nothing moving up there. So I would say at least we need to backfill that one position.
Deb, can we move in a direction where we can move somebody there if we're short just to get by till September? Because right now I'm breaking it down into windows. July, August, and September are a quarter. What we save in a quarter can be substantial before the next quarter gets here. Can we move somebody from one barn to another so that you're not totally out of people? Is there a way to get there?
Well, first, I would like to point out that on the schedule for today, we have 10 crews. It's not just paving that we do in the summer. And one of the things I worry about with especially one barn in particular being down is on a day-to-day basis, we can kind of figure stuff out, sort of. I mean, we are down at least one truck driver because one truck has 2 drivers, and that's how that works out. But if we were to have a storm in Fort Ann, we would not be able to respond in a timely manner if we didn't have a full, not even a full crew, but a crew. Like at this point right now, we do not have enough personnel in that barn to go cut down a tree. I don't want to call it safety, but it is safety. There's a certain number of people that you have to have on a crew to cut down a tree.
Okay, so my discussion to that is, can we have a contingency plan, and times like that, we pull from the Whitehall barn, or we pull from Fort Edward, or I'm with you that those are going to be issues, but can we just work around this for a quarter until September so that we aren't stressing our fiscal situation more? That's all I'm asking.
I mean, we can do anything. I would hope that, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that, but you know, if that's what you guys vote to do, that's what you vote to do.
John Roselle had his hand.
Yeah, John Roselle, please.
I was just going to ask the same thing about transferring a person from other barns. The question was answered. Thank you.
Kathy? We can't hear you, Kathy, for some reason.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. My question was this idea just sprung on Deb right now and she has to think of this on the fly? Or was she approached about this idea before and she's had time to really think about the logistics? Because I hate to say, if you're thinking right now, as we all are, that this just came up, is she going to have other problems that creep up that she didn't have time to think of on the spur of the moment? Or was this discussed ahead of time that this was a possibility?
You're absolutely right. I've been here 10 days and everything has been on the fly for 10 days. I did get to discuss some of this with Deb last night, but things are moving very rapidly, and we're just trying to, we're putting a tourniquet on where we're hemorrhaging right now, and it's not DPW's fault. It's happening in every department. So what we're just trying to do is slow down the money going out, because you can't salvage it after it's spent. And we know what the shortfall is going forward, we can release more money back. We just can't let it out the door first. That's all we're trying to accomplish at this point. Yeah, go ahead, Cassie.
Yeah, I understood all that, Brian, and I don't have a problem with it. My concern was there enough time for her to actually think, or any department head that's going to have this thrown at them today? Was there enough time for them to really give it thought and discuss it with the foreman and whether the logistics of it would work? I mean, to sit
Absolutely
here today,
not.
Right.
Absolutely not. There was not enough time, and we need to have a DPW meeting and vet all this in its proper place. But till then, Deb's going to need money for paving. There's things got to happen, but I think we can wait the quarter for new hires, because there's nothing worse than cutting people because you went and hired people that you got to cut later just for the sake of saving money. I would rather not hire them to begin with if that was the case, and go and we can pay slower because there's going to be a lot less to do. That's kind of where we're at. It's the hand we're dealt at the moment. It's not something I want to do. I like to pave as much as anybody.
There may be less paving, but we still do. Like I said, we have 10 crews today and only one of them is a paving crew. I just don't want you to think all we do is pave.
No, well, I know there's a bridge crew. Pretty much you're in crews in the summertime, am I right? You pretty much have paving crews and bridge crews during the summers.
Oh, no, we have culvert crews to prepare the roads for the paving. We have bridge crews, a paving crew. We have ditching crews for maintenance, and that's just for today. We have roadside mowing crews, and we have, we move equipment. We have a whole multitude of things. I think Cassie's question about us not having time to figure this out, I mean, what I figured out in this short amount of time that I had, up until last night, I thought we were going to be able to backfill these. It was not a concern. And now I understand the concern, don't get me wrong, but I really would like to push for the one position of the three.
The one backfill position for that Ford and barn you're talking about?
Yes.
Chase Kelly?
I would amend my motion to do only the one backfill, and we'll vote on that and see how it goes.
Do I need a second for the amendment? Or you?
Yeah, you got it. Kathy seconded it.
I have to ask though, because if you're doing this through personnel, I can't second it. If you're doing it through finance, I
think you gotta do
can.
this
So
through
which
personnel.
Do you want to do it strictly through personnel?
I think you probably should do that through personnel, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So take
then you need
Dave.
somebody else.
Dave, okay. So the amendment is to change it to one backfill position of the highway worker two. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
There's at least three there.
Yep.
All right.
Hey,
So,
Matt,
and then we go back to the original mode. Oh, I'm sorry, Dana?
who's vote? Is it personnel voting or finance right now?
Personnel.
Personnel.
Okay, thanks.
So go back to the original motion to backfill one position in the fort and barn for a highway worker two. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Right.
There's at least three there. Okay. All right. Do you want to keep going down the list, Deb? Highway supervisor two?
No, did you just approve hiring the Ford and?
Yes.
So I am okay with taking the rest and trying to figure it out to committee.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Okay, so we might as well take that right to finance now and put up that same resolution that we're gonna move those.
We can move it through, since there wasn't any, I don't think we need to do it. There wasn't any other discussion. It wasn't controversial.
So we can leave it. We're good.
Okay.
Everyone's good.
So Deb, you're okay if we move on to buildings and grounds? Okay. So Matt, tell us about labor part-time. Is it 2 backfills? You gotta unmute, Matt.
This didn't work last month either.
Not yet.
There we
There you
go.
go.
The 2 laborers are basically our summer help. We have 1 out of 3 right now. I'm looking to them. We're pretty busy right now with everybody coming back, and our summer help takes care of a lot of the odds and ends stuff. You know, it's the cheapest laborer position I can get to help my crew out. So, and right now we're very busy trying to get everybody in all the other departments back into the building and taking care of all the requirements.
So it's 2 summer help people. There's an end time for them sometime in September?
What we did last year is we changed it from seasonal to part-time labor due to the fact that we used them for snowstorms. So instead of taking them off the payroll, putting them back on the payroll for a snowstorm, you know, vice versa. Well, we changed the title of them so we could leave them on. Lots of times they're college or high school kids, and on their school break, if we had snowstorms or, you know, school's closed, they'd come help shovel sidewalks, and we'd use them in that capacity. So basically, it was just a title change.
Before somebody else asks, if we backfill these 2 positions, would it help the county to get back to regular operations quicker?
Certainly. Certainly. I mean, that's what, right now, we're almost 90% of our work is trying to get the county buildings and ready for people to come back to work.
Okay, is anybody interested in making a motion regarding the summer help backfills? No one? Melissa, you want to weigh in on that?
I just wanted to clarify again that they're not just for the summer. Matt uses them during the summer, but these positions would actually stay filled throughout the year, and he would use them as needed after the summer.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave?
I would make a motion for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion to backfill the 2 part-time labor positions. Do I have a second? I mean, I'll second it for discussion. From a personnel or finance position, does anybody got any discussions on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to get these? Personally, I just think if this helps us get us back to getting the people in the building and getting us back to operation quicker, I think it's a good thing, but that's just my opinion. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
What are we looking at for usually the cost on this?
Matt, do you have any idea on how many hours per week, what the pay rate is, and how many weeks we're talking about?
I don't have the exact numbers, but serves me right that it's approximately 10,000 per position.
10,000 per position per year?
I think that's kind of where I budget myself on using them per hours. And, yep.
Okay, how about Paul?
Yeah, so if you don't give Matt the people he wants, and this is for like general repairs of buildings and grounds, how far behind will you be the following year on things that didn't get attention?
That's a question for Matt, I think.
Well, if it's, you know, for me, we're behind now because we were shut down for 3 months. So our normal, you know, crew, which we didn't hire, you know, I didn't hire this back when this started because of everything that, you know, was going on. We're behind as it is. I mean, we're spending all our time on, you know, sanitizing and this, you know, instead of doing our regular maintenance work.
Bob?
I think that something we've got to consider here also is the amount of time that the regular staff is going to have to spend. There's going to be all kinds of things going on here with reopening. And I think this could have a effect on our reopening. I'm kind of focused on that right now. And I really think that we ought to consider these pretty strongly, because I think that we're going to have a far bigger workload than probably Matt can even predict, trying to get reopened and all the extra things happen every day about, what we got to do to reopen. And I think we'd be maybe a little foolish not to give them some help right now.
John Roselle?
We're closed down. Do you have any idea what you saved in payroll, the people that weren't working?
We saved nothing because we paid them the whole time.
Still paid them.
Yeah, we paid them. I can tell you that I didn't backfill. I'm already approved to backfill a position that quit. I didn't backfill this during it. So in my own budget for the year, I'm doing very well. This doesn't, I'm going to end up under for the year as it is, but.
Okay, no overtime or nothing was saved, actually. It was just basic.
No, because when my guys came in, we paid them overtime.
Time and a half.
Yep, so.
Jay Skelly?
Yeah, Matt, what are you estimating? I'm assuming the sanitizing protocol is gonna take a lot more effort. What do you think the added man hours, effort, tied up time is gonna be involved in that?
I think, Jay, what we're doing is kind of shifting some of the old, like cleaning procedures to the new ones. I'm hoping, if I can get back to full staff, that we can handle it without overtime. And, having two crews like I do now, having a day and a night crew. So the night crew is doing your sanitizing at night. The things that are going to hurt, even if we are at full staff, is the cleaning the rugs, the tile cleaning down at the jail, it's the things that they always did for years. Those will probably get set to the side while we're doing the sanitizing measures. So I'm hoping just to shift the workload to, a different type of workload.
Sue?
Matt, I have to commend you on you've used your people for cleanup, right?
Yes.
I mean, weather cleanup.
Yes.
And so you've been shuffling two different groups, the weather cleanup and COVID-19, and trying to get us reopened
Yes.
with employees, correct?
Correct. And, just to add to that, public health and the sheriffs and the law center were open the whole time.
Right.
So we were supporting them. So I did have guys working. We just juggled everything to make it work.
Right.
And Matt, these are part-time laborers, so you use them when you need them, and if you don't need them, you don't use them, correct?
Correct. I try to give them, to be fair, a schedule.
Right.
And we do use them more seasonally than once fall comes, they tend to, I don't use them until we have a storm or something, that needs a lot of labor. I guess some of these questions, Deb may have known last night. I knew when we started this meeting that this was going to happen. These are normal backfills. They're summer. The reason why we're here today is because I forgot to ask for them to be backfilled when I needed to in February. So I guess I'm getting a little bit sideswiped with this today. I would have better numbers for you.
Anybody else got any other comments? Jay?
Matt, so assuming what you're describing then, if you don't have the part-time guys here, your guys are probably going to end up putting in some overtime, which is going to eat up money too.
No doubt. Because these guys are the ones, my summer help, they're basically doing your basic maintenance around the buildings, you're outside, and it allows my, guys that are here full-time to do the things that we need to get going again.
Day and a half?
Can alternative sentencing be used to help ease Matt's burden on sanitizing?
Once the court's open, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that's just come to a halt. There's nothing in the pipeline right now. That may be something, by September and October, but it's nothing right now. Courts don't open, it looks like, until August. So I think a lot of those things are kind of falling by the wayside for the time being.
But Brian, that would be for new incoming people. There must be people still in the pipeline.
Now, you know, Mike Gray would have to weigh in on that at some point.
But I mean, for cleaning inside the building and sanitizing, if they could help, that would free Matt's people for more of the maintenance stuff, not the cleaning.
You want to respond to that, Matt?
Yeah, just a quick add to that. We do appreciate the help from alternative sentencing, and I try to use it whenever possible. I have found to be less than reliable, Dana. It has, you know, in the past, if they have 4 people, but then something changes, one of them goes, you know, away or this or that, they aren't able to complete the task. And then what happens is we're charged all of a sudden with doing the task on overtime or something else because they couldn't do it. It's never been a true guarantee, and I'm all for using it.
But Matt, in this situation, this unique situation, beggars can't be choosers.
Sure. I guess what I'd like to, I mean, I'd throw it out there, and I'm gonna be probably in the same boat that Deb is. I'll let you guys vote on it and we'll figure it out. I mean, I'm coming here and asking for the backfills because I need them. You know, I can
So,
give you
you have
a
something you want to
better
weigh in on?
idea, but
Sue, did you have your hand up?
Matt, just talking about the being sideswiped, I just know that I think all of us feel you're doing a great job. I think this situation that we find ourselves in, we're all feeling sideswiped. So
sure. I understand.
Stay with us. You're doing great.
Yeah. I'm just usually more prepared with numbers and everything in front of me to answer these questions, and
right.
I don't have it. So I'm feeling a little bit unprepared.
Yeah, I'm just gonna weigh in for a second. I think Jay Skelly probably hit it right. This is the most cost-effective way. We're so far behind that, and even Matt mentioned this is his cheapest labor. And if we have the cheapest labor compared to using that in place of time and a half labor to get the same thing accomplished, these might be the important ones to do right today and move on so we can get the thing opened up again. Getting open here is going to be a problem.
I think Paul Ferguson had his hand up. Paul?
Yeah, I'm really a stickler on maintenance. I just feel if you don't, I can't vote on this committee, but I just feel if you skip the maintenance, we're just going to get farther behind. It's like skipping an oil change in a $250,000 truck. You save the money by not changing the oil, or do you change the oil and save the truck? Maintenance is maintenance, and I just feel that we'd get behind. I really trust Matt. I don't think if he didn't need them, he wouldn't use them. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim?
I just want to second what Paul's saying. I agree, and I think, you know, giving Matt the extra hand to take care of the building maintenance around the building will allow for his general technicians to, you know, repair and take on larger tasks that he has. So I agree with Paul. I can't vote in this, but.
Okay, that looks like the discussion. So we'll back to the motion, Debbie? Right?
Yeah.
All in favor of the 2 part-time labor backfills in personnel, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. At least 4.
Yep.
Matt, building maintenance helper, any different than what we talked about just now?
Yeah, this
Same
is
position?
a full-time cleaning job, night crew, which does our sanitizing, which they're, you know, charged with doing our sanitizing and all this. We've had people leave, and this is a backfill.
Dave, you want to move that?
I'll move it.
All right, do I have a second on backfilling the building maintenance helper? Sue, discussion?
Well,
Dave?
Matt, you know, on both these, the part-time and the other, you know, we have to remember there's a bigger burden placed on building maintenance, not only with their normal positions, but the cleaning and maintenance they have to do to sanitize the facility. So that's important, and we're also going to have those issues up at the parks too, so we need help there up too. So, I mean, their workload has increased substantially over the past 3 months for the COVID reasons.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of backfilling the building maintenance helper position, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Two, okay.
So
Okay.
is,
All right, Matt, you're off the hook.
Thanks.
We're gonna sideswipe Gina now.
Good morning.
Hi, Gina. Morning. So we've got 3 different positions you're looking at doing. Let's discuss the first one, aging services aide, part-time, 2 positions. What's that entail?
Okay, so just to provide a little background, my request today is for 2 part-time positions and 2 per diem positions. Backfill, they are all in my staffing pattern and in my budget. I know here on the agenda, it's just showing 1 aging services aide per diem. So these positions are related to the home delivered meals program. These positions are the drivers for home delivered meals. At this time, we had 2 resignations from part-timers, both with longevity and steps. Both individuals were here for 24 and 25 years. And so at this time, our plan would be to offer those 2 part-time positions to 2 per diem folks, which opens up the 2 per diem positions that are listed here for backfills. My proposal today is to talk about an additional 4 aging services aide per diem positions to help support the home delivered meals program. Prior to this, we contracted with a not-for-profit, CWI. In the beginning of COVID, CWI ceased services, and so at this time, we have been fulfilling a total of 12 routes with our part-time, per diems, and even folks here in our office that typically don't drive. So based on that, I tried my best to pull in some figures. These positions, all positions are funded through both state and federal dollars. At this particular time, approximately 46% reimbursement will be on these positions. These positions will start new and at a base rate of $11.84 an hour. Because CWI is not providing services, we're saving on mileage cost to CWI, and that estimates around $1,500 a month.
Okay, so let me get it straight, Gina. You've had 2 resignations, and so you have 2 part-time openings. You're gonna take a couple per diem people, move them up in there. And then you wanna open up the number of per diem slots, not hiring new people and not have more people there, just more slots that people can fit into that you can use on a per diem basis when you need them. And this is for delivering home meals to the senior citizens.
Correct. I'm not sure if I'm hearing you correctly, because currently in our staffing pattern, we do have the 2 part-time positions and there are 2 per diem positions. All 4 of those would be request for backfill. And of course, when I say that, it's based on the approval of the part-time because the 2 per diem would move up, if that makes any sense. And so the additional 4 per diems would be the same rate, aging services aid, they would be per diem. They would not be subjected to longevity or steps.
Gotcha, but it's opening up the staffing pattern. It's not hiring 4 additional new people. It's just providing 4 new slots that people can fill, so when they need them, you can call them up. Is that right?
No, our staffing pattern, if you approve the additional 4 per diem spots, that would be an additional, those would be additional positions within my staffing pattern. Now, when I say per diem, we're running 12 routes. And so we're running then 12 drivers. At this particular time, we're filling some of those spots with full-time staff, people who work in the office and people who work at the meal sites. So I wouldn't have on the road during one day, I would be running 12 drivers. And so we wouldn't be utilizing all the per diems, but we're given the situation now where people are looking to take time off for the summer. All of my part-timers and per diems have been working every day since COVID. And so they're looking for taking a break. And so right now, my request for adding to my staffing pattern, the additional 4 per diem, really based on trying to fill in days when people want to have time off. A per diem position, or the part-time position works about 20 hours a week. The per diem spots can vary. Right now, our routes do vary in time. We have some routes that can be done in 2 hours, and the highest hour rate is the 4-hour routes.
Tina, is there a funding stream that goes with any of these that would automatically pay for these? So that's not a consideration. I'm just trying to put it out there so we have full knowledge here.
So at this particular time, it's pretty convoluted in our world where we have several different funding streams. We have federal funding streams, and we also have state funding streams. Each have a different local match to them as we utilize them. I just want to put out there as well that we've received approximately $177,000 in federal stimulus funds, with $124,000 designated for the nutrition program. And the $124,000 that's designated to the nutrition program kicks in when the governor opens up the emergency declaration. So when the emergency declaration is lifted, then we would only be able to use $124,000 of the $177,000 to the nutrition. At this particular time, all of my funding streams are interchangeable, meaning in a normal budget year, I would have only certain programs to pay with certain funding streams. Right now, under the emergency declaration, I have the ability to shift all my funding for all my programs and services. So going back to the federal stimulus dollars, with that $177,000 that I'm expected to receive, it's an extra money. It's not in my budget at this time. It was something that we did not plan for. The positive to it is that that stimulus fund is 100% dollars that comes with no local match. So my intention is to plan accordingly with that, to use that money first, particularly under the emergency declaration, so I can plug it into programs that do have local match and try my best to decrease that as much as possible.
Excellent.
Thank you. Sue would like to make a motion to, number 1, to aging services part-time aid. Sue moved it. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
David, give some discussion, David.
Yeah, so the question, Gina, is how's your meal deliveries been? Has that number of meal deliveries gone up during this time period? Stayed the same?
So
what's the ratio there?
Thank you for asking. So again, we have closed our congregate sites. So I can give you a number here for a month total of meals. So back in January, we served approximately 7,452 meals. That number includes both home delivered meals and our meal site dining programs. In May, we served 7,431 meals. And so there is a slight, very slight decrease of about 20 meals. And those are all home delivered meals. The governor and the federal government had lifted eligibility for the home delivered meals program. So typically, there are some guidelines that we would follow to put somebody in the home delivered meals program. The federal government, according to the Older Americans Act, had lifted eligibility, and now for home delivered meals, folks who are Washington County residents and 60 years of age and older can get home delivered meals, with the preface that the governor and the federal government are truly trying to have people shelter in place. And also to add on to that is that the governor did mandate that the home delivered meals program must continue during this pandemic. We do so the meals on each route vary every day. We have people come on, we have people go off. This number is extremely high for home delivered meals. As you can see, it's comparable to when we have our meal sites open. When the emergency declaration is lifted and we go back to normalcy, folks who have been receiving home delivered meals that typically wouldn't be eligible for home delivered meals will fall off. And so they will come off the program, so that particular time we will decrease our number of meals for the home delivered meals program. And again, going back to our routes, right now we have certain guidelines that we have to follow. We have to take temperatures of meals. We have to make sure that health and safety food standards are all followed. And so we really have to watch how many meals somebody can deliver during a time period. routes are constantly changing. So when we do see the number of home delivered meals decrease, we're going to be looking at those routes and also looking to combine it with another route, you know, more or less to say, we're not going to send a driver out to deliver like 10 meals. Combine those 10 meals with other routes to make it more feasible. And at that particular time, then you would see the route numbers, possibly, this is being optimistic, the route numbers decrease. So right now we're on 12 home delivered meals routes. And so again, I don't know if it's going to go up or go down, or we are pretty sure that it's going to go down based on the ineligibility of participants.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on that. John, I'm sorry, didn't see your hand.
Yes, they've been working all through the pandemic here, and were they getting time and a half delivered for delivering these meals also?
Yes, when the county was offering time and a half pay during COVID, these drivers did get time and a half pay.
Do we have an idea if we're gonna get reimbursed for that time and a half?
So they would go. I'm sorry,
was that to me? So, Mr. Rozelle, so as of now, the word from the federal government is that we are not going to be eligible for reimbursement through FEMA for that hazard pay. I'm still trying to work that angle with FEMA.
Can I answer that though, or at least get a little dialogue here? Gina, your $177,000 in funds though, would that cover some of that? Is that a possibility? So that might be covered in your department, or is that not a possibility? I guess I need a little clarification there.
Yep.
That's where I was heading.
It is possible. Right now, according to our plan, we're looking to use the stimulus dollars towards programs and budget it accordingly. But we have the flexibility to use that 100% federal dollar amount to put towards the delivery of the meals. If we shift any of that funds into administrative costs, the federal stimulus dollars will require a 10% local match. We can see what we can do to most certainly avoid pushing it in towards administrative, but towards programming, which would include the delivery of the meals.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little clear here. I'll be glad when we get to having committee meetings again where we can look at paper while we're sitting around the table. But we're adding the 4 per diem, but they're there technically for backup. So it's not like we're paying the extra positions. They're there to fill when somebody is off for whatever reason. Is that correct?
So at this particular time, I am using, again, I'm covering 12 routes. So there are some per diems that have been working the 20 hours a week or less. Because I've been needing them. So at this particular time, the per diem in our normal staffing chart is just what you mentioned. Per diems are substitute drivers for when my full-time drivers and my part-time drivers cannot be present to deliver the meal. So at this time, I can't guarantee, because if we have 12 routes that we're covering, I could be using all of my per diems if I have to accommodate vacation time and benefit time for others.
Melissa? Melissa?
Technical difficulty, sorry. I just wanted to mention that in the staffing pattern right now, Gina has 4 aging services aide per diems and 5 aging services aides part-time. So there's only 9 currently, and she keeps referring to the 12 routes. So I'm not sure if they double up on routes, but it sounds like there probably is a shortage anyway.
Thank you.
And so when I talk about the routes are typically on a normal day. When we have CWI, we operate 7 routes, and then CWI operates the rest. At this particular time, as I mentioned, our routes are constantly ebbing and flowing based on the number of participants receiving meals. And so right now, we've kind of maxed out the number of meals we can do on certain routes, and we are operating 12 routes as we speak today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of backfilling the 2 aging services aide part-time, say aye. Aye. And then from a domino position, aging services aid per diem to make up for that would be number 2 on the list. All in favor of aging services aid per diem backfill?
Can I just
Gina,
add?
you wanna-
Yep, there are, so on the agenda, it's just showing that there's 1 per diem, but those are 2 positions. There are 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'd be voting on 2 per diems to backfill the part-times.
The 2 part-timers, yes, okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sue said aye. Oh, we need a I'm sorry, Dave, make a motion. Okay. Sue, do you second the motion?
You're good.
Okay. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
And the third thing, Gina, is a request to add 4 additional per diems into the staffing pattern change. So this will have to go to the full board, correct, Melissa? Yes. So this will go from here to the full board meeting next week.
Okay.
So I need a motion to change the staffing pattern to add those 4 per diem aging services aides. Dave? Sue? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's carried. And the last item, Melissa, on the agenda regarding the sheriff has been deleted, so we don't have to deal with that, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Unless there's any opposition, I would adjourn the personnel meeting at this time and move on to the finance meeting. Everybody have any problem with that? Okay, we're adjourned. It's all yours.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, we're gonna move right along to the treasurer reports. Mr. Nolet, if you're with us, come on in.
Good morning, everybody. I'll be extremely brief because I'm sure that I'll be popping my nose in and out during the rest of the meeting as things come up on the agenda. I have a feeling based on the meeting so far that if not today, in the very near future, I'm going to be very in this building because we've already made a value adjustment that Deb's the only department head that has to go back and rethink how she does business. That's concerning, making emotional decisions instead of financial ones. So I have a feeling that I'm going to be the grim reaper around here as we go forward, and that's unfortunate. With that said, let me move into my reports. The sales tax, I think I let you all know, the first deposit in June was down another 418,000, which now puts us 660,000 down for the year. So what I did is I took a look at 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is with phase 2 or phase 1, whatever phase we're happen to be in now, if that started people spending their money, what would that look like? And if on June 1st, everybody went out and started shopping wherever they were shopping before to the level that we were shopping last year, the impact on the county would be around $1.5 million hit over last year's numbers, which is about $1.1 million under budget. So that to me is kind of the best case scenario. Because again, that's assuming that everybody goes out and starts spending like they were spending last year on June 1st. Probably not the most realistic, but I want to give you best case, worst case, knowing that we'll end up somewhere in between. The second scenario I looked at is what happens if we go back to normal spending habits for the fourth quarter of our year, third quarter of the state's year, which would mean October to December. If our spending habits were the same during that period of time, we would see a $4 million decrease over last year in our sales tax. I don't think that that's an unrealistic. I think that we're truly going to be somewhere between that 1.5 and that 4 million. And I really don't think that the 4 million is, well, it's a scary number. I don't think it's a really far-fetched number because again, that only assumes that we've gone back to normal spending for the last quarter of the year. And especially if there's a second round of this disease, that might also be a stretch as well. The third scenario I looked at is if the current trend continues, which we're about 33.35% down deposit, if that trend continued all the way to the end of the year, we would be, it's $5.3 million under this time last year. So those are three scenarios I looked at. So somewhere between 1.5 and 5.3 are the scenarios that I ran. I think that that $4 million number is not unrealistic, because again, that assumes the same level of spending for the last 3 months of the year. And even that might be a hopeful wish. The other section of my report that you'll get attached to the minutes will be our budget to actual report. And the items of note there that I wanted to bring to your attention, in addition to the sales tax being down to 660, the county clerk revenue, obviously, to date is already down 228,000. Now, I hope that with the Dropbox and everything that they've got going on down there, with the extra staff coming in and processing things in a flurry, that we'll be able to chip away at some of that deficit. But the closure has had a significant impact on the county clerk revenues as well, on top of the sales tax. The general fund revenues were also down another $500,000 in public health. What I haven't had time to delve into yet is if that's just a matter of timing, where they've been so busy putting out COVID fires that they haven't been able to get their first quarter claims in. That's entirely possible. So I can get back to you on the actual forensics of why the public health revenue is down. They could have also had some catch-up revenue last year that they don't have this year, but I will get back to you on what that actually is. The expense side of general fund was only up $400,000. And if there's any silver lining in my report, it would be that. Because if the expenses in general fund are up 400,000, but we're $660,000 into that additional time and a half pay, that means we've actually saved $260,000 in expenses over last year. If you were to take that time and a half COVID out of the equation, our expenses are actually down. So I think Mr. Campbell said in the beginning of the meeting that department have been trying to work with minimal staffing and minimal expenditures during the COVID shutdown. And I would say that the numbers show that to be true, because again, if we're only up 400,000 in expenses, it means we're technically down 260. So that's, if there's a silver lining in my report, that would be it. I'm not going to spend any more time with you right now, because I'm sure that as Brian and Chris go on through the agenda, there'll be other questions that you have for me or other comments that I'll need to make as well, unless you have questions for me right now.
James Griffin?
We don't know what the impact of online sales is currently, do we? And we won't have do we have any real timing on what that realization would be?
No, and I have been communicating with New York State Tax and Finance late last week and early this week. It's amazing how much information they won't share, even with me. There is a report that only county treasurers can get. I've requested that report. There's a 10,000 foot view of that report that I can give you when it comes in, but it's very confidential. And what I receive, there's some of it that only I can see, but I can report out to you at least categorically where things are. So what's a little concerning about the sales tax, and I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes there's things that make you scratch your head. This last deposit across the state, every county was within about 1.5 to 2 percentage points of that 32%. I find it very, very interesting that every resident of New York State had the exact same spending habits over the past COVID shutdown. So I'm concerned that the deposit that we got from the state might not be our real number. I can't prove that. It's just, I find it very hard to believe that every resident in New York State had the exact same spending habit over the shutdown. So for every county to be within 32, 33%, that seems odd to me. If it was, if there was a range from like 31 to 37, I wouldn't question it. But with it being within 1 or 2 percentage points of each other statewide, that's interesting to me. So I hope that there's maybe some money on the table that's not here yet.
I hope so too.
Okay. Thanks, Al. Okay, moving on, have the Marsh facility items with DPW.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about that? Me?
Run that by me again, Deb?
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the Furch Marchicelli agreement is for the bridge preservation job, and that adds funds for construction due to the selection of the construction company.
Okay, and so where are the funds being added and who's adding them? Then I guess we need the nuts and bolts here. Is this more cost to us or is this more funding coming in? I haven't seen these yet.
Oh, this is the, where we pay 20% until the Marchicelli comes through, which it usually does, and we end up paying 5%. This is the bridge preservation project for Doc Johnson and Cemetery Road that we've been doing.
Ryan, right now it's at an 80-20 split, but as Deb said, normally Marcelli does eventually come through and it makes it an 80-15-5.
And so we're actually on to the resolutions. These are resolutions A, B, C, and D, is that correct? That's what I've got in front of me now.
Yep. Yeah. So A,
So,
yep, it's Doc Johnson.
yeah, so we might as well do these as we go through them, Chris, would you suggest?
Yep.
I mean, usually we go right to resolution, but I think this is the best way to handle them. So, A, we're just fronting the money to make it happen. These are things that have to happen on all four of these to get there. That's the way I'm looking at this.
Yep.
So I guess I need a motion for resolution A to make that one happen.
Move it.
Moved by Jay and Cassie. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Carried. Okay, resolution B is Johnson and Cemetery Roads Bridge Preservation.
So it's the same project. This is the budget amendment to the project.
Okay. So it's the same project, and it's just the money moving again. And it's appropriated fund balance of $14,390. So is there a motion to move that one, or any, just moved by Cassie, second by
Second.
James? Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, resolution number C is,
This is the Church Street Bridge, and that adds funding for right-of-way acquisition.
okay. And that's the 20% local share again?
Yep.
So I need a motion. Moved by Cassie. Second by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay, resolution D. And this is the 46 Durkee Town pavement preservation.
So this was just supposed to allocate things to a different fund and not be an increase, but it looks like it's an increase here. Al, do you know what happened with that?
Yeah, based on the Schedule A you sent me, the total funding went up $285,000.
Oh, okay, so 285. So this is for the construction and the construction inspection on County Route 46. It's also a federal aid project funded at 80-20 at this moment.
The original project was 423, and it's now at 7 something. I don't have it right in front of me.
708, 769 is the new amount, up from 423 even.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, so I need a motion in a second, and we can go to discussion. Cassie, moved it. Do I have a second?
I'll
Dave,
second.
Sue, and Jay. Discussion.
What was the jump
Hearing
in
none?
cost?
Go ahead, Jay.
What was the jump in the cost? Was there such a jump?
I thought this jump was made a long time ago. This supplemental increases the design funds and it adds the construction funds. So I only had 114,760. So I don't know if there's a supplemental A that is missing. Or not.
Very possibly.
Al, does that mean it just hasn't happened yet, or we don't have that information yet?
It probably means that there was a supplemental between the first and the third that wasn't budgeted.
Okay, so but we're still at the 80-20 split. It's still our portion, no matter how you look at it. And this corrects the total number. This actually does both at once, is what we're saying.
This gets us to the current Schedule A.
Okay. So in this instance, we're talking about $57,000 that we front in fund balance, and hopefully we go back to the 5% and some of that gets relinquished. So is there any more discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Now, CHIPS, Pave New York, extreme weather funding discussion, and Chris, I'm gonna let you take that from there, and Deb's gonna chime in whenever, or we can do it the opposite way around.
Well, can I just say, when I put this on here, we were funded at 0%. And that's why I wanted to discuss it with the members of the board, because I wasn't comfortable with spending any money on paving unless I had the backing of the board with that. You know, we thought it was imminent. And since then, we have been funded for these at a relative, I don't know if I would use the word guarantee, of 80%. So now Chris and I have talked about it. Chris came up with some options, and he's going to talk about those, and some of them are better than others.
That's very polite, and I appreciate that, Deb. Thank you.
Deb. Okay, I am going to share my screen here. All right, can you see my spreadsheet now?
Yes.
Okay. So as Deb was alluding to, I'm going to start you up here at the top of this spreadsheet. In the adopted budget, because of what we were told at the time, the only revenue that is included in the 2020 adopted budget is the CHIPS funding, which was flat from 2019, and that was in the amount of $1.940 million. The expense for paving, and we're just looking at the 0.2 for capital road projects, and the county road budget is, as adopted, is $3.241 million. So what was actually adopted by the state at budget time is the following three funding sources, which was CHIPS at what we had budgeted, 1.94. The Pave New York and EWR is Extreme Winter Recovery. We were told that those two funding streams were likely to go away. Turns out they were funded at flat from 2019 in the adopted state fiscal 2020-2021 budget. So those numbers for us are the 442,905 and the 265,198. Why Deb had put this on the agenda, as she was just alluding to, was we were completely up in the air. We had not gotten our CHIPS award letter as of earlier this week, which is highly unlikely. We usually would have gotten that a month or two ago. And we were hearing rumors that, this was one of the things that the governor was going to cut, given the fiscal crisis that the state was facing. So the good news is that earlier this week we got the CHIPS, Pave New York, and Extreme Winter Recovery runs from the state. And we are funded at 100% for that. Now, at the bottom of the runs, there was an asterisk that said each of these enumerated appropriations is subject to up to a 20% reduction in funding. So we've got a couple different scenarios to walk through. If we take scenario one, which is the least likely, and I would not recommend acting on it, but I think we should go through it to see how we get elsewhere. Scenario one would be we assume that 100% of the appropriation that was made by the state comes through. That would put our total revenue from the state for paving at $2.648 million, which is $708,000 above budget. Now, given the fiscal situation facing the county, one suggestion in discussions with Brian and with Deb, if you look back up here, the paving number originally was set to $3.2 million. If we reduced the paving number to just match dollar for dollar what we get from the state, that would be a reduction in paving budget of $592,000. So what that would mean is that we're $700,000 over budget in revenue, and we would reduce the appropriation by $592,000. The net result of that would be a decrease in the general fund transfer to county road fund in $1.3 million. So basically, you could save $1.3 million by only reducing the paving budget by $600,000. Again, not the most likely scenario, but it helps, I think, to get us to other places. So, scenario two, which I think is Deb's least favorite, is to assume the full 20% funding reduction from the state. And that makes the CHIPS, Pave New York, and Extreme Winter Recovery funding levels to these, which is simply 80% of the total appropriation from the state. That would make the total revenue for paving from the state at $2.118 million. And we had budgeted 1.94, so we would still be 178,000 over budget in revenue. If you now took the same philosophy where we set our paving appropriation to dollar for dollar to only what we get from the state, that would be a reduction of 1.1 million in the paving budget. By doing that, because you're reducing the paving budget by an additional $500,000 plus, you can still maintain the $1.3 million net savings to general fund, but you've reduced the paving budget by 33% or so. So scenario three is a bit of a hybrid, wherein we assume the 20% reduction in state funding, so that number is the same, the 2.118 million, which again results in a 178,000 over budget in revenue. Then, instead of setting our paving appropriation for dollar what the state gives us, and this is somewhat arbitrary, but I needed numbers, for this scenario, I set it at what the full 100% appropriation from the state would have been, which is the $2.648 million. So in that case, we're still realizing the $600,000 reduction in appropriation and 178,000 over budget in revenue. So that would result in a net savings to general fund of 771,000 and change. Now, the way the adopted budget was done at the state level is that if the state financial plan is out of balance by more than a threshold, which it is, then the budget director can implement cuts to appropriations. He has to submit those proposed cuts to the legislature. The legislature has 10 days to put together a counter proposal. And if they don't override his cuts, whatever the budget director puts in place goes into place, or has recommended goes into place, rather. He has not put forward that formal package of suggested cuts. There's not really a timeline in the Article 7 budget language that spells out when he has to do it. What we're being told now is that the DOB and the second floor is waiting for some indication or some action from the federal government before they implement the cuts. And the reason I say that is that it could be a considerable amount of time before we have any certainty on what level we're actually going to achieve in the state funding. So for what it's worth, and I'll kick it out for discussion and then I'll hand it over to you all, I might suggest that we start down the road of scenario two, which is we assume worst case funding scenario, given the parameters we've been given by Department of Budget, which would be the 2.118 million. And then we authorized Deb, effective today, to move forward with $2.1 million worth of paving. And then with the agreement with Deb and the department that if and when the department starts to approach that 2.1 million in expenditures for paving, we have a discussion with Mr. Skelly's committee about what we know at that time from the state, where we are in pavement projects, and where hopefully as we move through the calendar, we're going to be able to get more and more certainty on the overall financial picture of the county. And so with this plan, if we start down the road of scenario 2, we haven't put any, county dollars into the paving project. And if we get to, let's say, late July or early August, and Deb says, okay, I'm at the $2.1 million mark in paving expenditures, I need direction from the board, we can say, okay, is the county in a position to put $500,000 of county dollars toward additional paving? Or have we gotten word from the governor that we're maybe only going to get cut 10% in these funding streams, or maybe the federal government comes through and we don't get cut at all? So I think maybe my suggestion would be it's a little too early to make a definitive decision for the entire paving season, but I feel comfortable recommending to the board that we could begin down the road of scenario 2, and then with the understanding that there will be continued communication with the department as we reach that decision point of the 2.1 million in expenditures.
Okay, I think you gotta get off the screen so I can see this.
Yes.
Deb, I would like to hear from you first on how you process this, where you're at, if you're in agreement, this is the way that we get started and see where it goes. And so the board can understand that we're all looking at it together and trying to come to a compromise to make the county work for us here.
So, ultimately, I think that scenario 2 takes the money out of our account, but scenario 3 leaves it in. Is that right, Chris?
To be honest with you, Deb, I'm not actually recommending at this point that we make any formal changes to the budget. We could. It's more a guideline for you as far as what you're authorized to expend out of that line.
Okay.
So I don't really view it as taking out the more money, but I understand where your take on that is, and yes, scenario 2 would reduce your budget effectively by $500,000 more than scenario 3 would.
So I'm comfortable with using the 80% to pave, and then if we are not reinstated the 20%, or even if we are reinstated the 20%, I guess, to come back and talk to the committee about it. But, if we're reinstated the 20%, then have 20%.
And I think where I'd go, Deb, is this is gonna be an ongoing thing. We right now wanna make sure that the board is in favor, if not unanimous, but that we start moving forward and get going with paving. Let's get started. But let's have like a ceiling at a certain area that you can get to there, but let's be talking this through our DPW meetings and having the discussion the whole time as things changes, because things may get better, they may get worse. But if we can have the discussions as we go along, we will probably be in a lot better place. I guess that's where we're trying to get. Day and a half.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Deb, do you have any intelligence on this, on DOT, state DOT paving? Right now they're preparing to pave a lot in Hartford. Have they decreased their paving down to a total of 80%? Have they decreased? Can we get some intelligence that there might be parity? If they're paving their full schedule, we might be given 100%?
So the last I knew, they were going forward with 100% of theirs, but I can verify if that's changed, because it may be just like us where things change every day.
Okay, also, there's all different kinds of paving. You can have like what you want, where you end up with the top coat, everything is all finished. if we're looking at maybe only 80%, are there other things you can do? Maybe do more cold patching in a road, shimming in a road where you normally would have paved these other roads 100%. Maybe you can do things like that so that the 80% of our money actually does a lot more.
Oh, yeah, we have worked feverishly to get to where we can most efficiently spend the money. When you're not spending the money, you're giving up longevity, but we
Yes,
make it.
but this is a different time. This is a little bit unique.
Yep, so we've made some changes so that we can do the most efficient work that we possibly can.
Okay.
But it changes every day, it seems.
Cassie Feather.
So, in keeping with the tone of the rest of our meeting today, is this something that was sprung on Deb in the last 24 hours? And have they had time to efficiently price projects and see if they will be able to utilize the money efficiently at the new lower rate? Because remember when we were doing the budget at the bridges, it was fine to say, well, we're going to do for example, $200,000 towards bridges, but actually that didn't complete projects in a round figure. Have they had time, since the rest of the meeting, it seems that the department heads have been surprised, have they had time to analyze and see if they can efficiently make that money work? Or maybe we should defer this to a meeting and give that department time to figure out, well, 221,000, if that's all, or 2.1 million, if that's all we're going to get, couldn't we have 2.3 because that's more efficient? You know, so they had some kind of guideline like that to work within.
And I think that's where we're trying to get, Cassie, where Deb was coming from. She had looked at she already had been looking at just whatever the CHIPS money was. Now it's at 80%. But Deb has prioritized all that and knows where she wants to go. What I'm trying to accomplish here, and I'm hoping it's what the board wants to accomplish here, is let's let her prioritize that and get started, and let's get on with the show so that we don't run out of paving season. And at the same time, when we meet again in approximately 2 weeks, probably DPW, she can update us. This is why we went here, here, and here. It's not our job to decide what their priority is unless there's something way out of whack that Deb needs to come to us and say, hey, I've got two things. It's either one or the other. Which one do you want? Then I think we should weigh in. But I think right now she needs to prioritize through her inner office as to how they're going to make all that happen and spend that, that first amount of money, whatever it will be, and how long that takes, we don't know. It's scheduling, all that stuff has to take place. But we need to get her started, and in DPW, we'll get an update as how much of that total has been spent, and where do we go from here, and is more money showed up, is there federal funds coming, whatever. So I think you're on the same, I think we're all on the same track. And I'm going to shoot it back to Deb and let her explain how she's handling that, or best she can with the little bit of time she's had. Go ahead, Cassie.
So I understood all of that, Brian. I guess I just wanted to leave that. I understood all of what you were saying. I had no problem with that. I just wanted to ask to have the door left open, that even if we have the discussion today and we say that she's going to shoot for the 2.1 or option number two, if we all understand that once she has a chance to digest this, that when we have the DPW meeting, that her figure for request might come up in between when she tries to fit the dollars of a project. Instead of trying to fit the projects in the choice of amounts for 1, 2, and 3, that when she has time to look, that maybe she's going to come up somewhere between 2 and 3, that we're not making a solid decision today, that we wait until DPW. And for all I know, maybe she knew about this for 3 weeks and knew that we were going to give her scenario 2. What I'm asking is because for all the personnel changes, the department heads obviously were blindsided by that this morning. So I'm saying if Deb didn't know that she had to fit into scenario 2 until the last 24 hours, that maybe after 48 more hours of actually working with it, she could come back with a figure that says, well, maybe 2.3 or whatever works best. And we come out with idea, suggestion 2.5. That was what I was trying to ask, if it was.
Okay, that's an excellent point, and I think my DPW will have those answers. So Deb, I'm gonna have you comment, and then we're gonna go to Al.
So we are able to spend our CHIPS, our Pave New York, and Extreme Winter Recovery on certain things. It's my understanding that it can't be taken to put somewhere else. So we have whittled our paving projects down to that amount.
Which amount, Deb, just to clarify, the 80% or the 100%?
Well, we originally whittled it to the 100%, and then we worked on doing it at 80%. Because that money has to be spent on that stuff. It's honestly, I don't know if I can be frank, but I don't think you can take that from me. So that's why we made that plan.
Okay. Al?
I would say that Chris has got it right on point. I think scenario 2 is the fiscally responsible thing to do right now, because as we all know around here, it's easier to put back in later if we know more than it is to take away. So the danger of giving her 100%, either in scenarios 1 or 3, is if the number comes in different and they've already paved beyond the 2.1, what do you do then? So I think scenario 2 is definitely the best way to go, because by the time she spends the 2.1, we will know more. I mean, we should have known more by now, but I can tell you that within the next 30 to 45 days, we're going to know a whole lot more. And hopefully this buys Deb enough time to at least get the project started till we know more. And I don't know if Deb and Chris are planning on having a further conversation, because there are other things you can spend the CHIPS money on as well.
Okay, DPW Chair, Jay Scully?
Yeah, and talking with Deb, I know her and her team have been working hard to look at these different scenarios. And I think as a board, we got to look at what we can handle and be most comfortable with. And I think that's scenario 2. And then we can come back to committee in another month or 2 when we use that money up. And if you're looking for a motion or just a consensus, I would make the motion that we go with scenario 2 and keep revisiting it in the DPW meetings and see if there's any further we can go than that.
Okay, is there a second on that? Moved by Dave O'Brien. Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Now we're on to discussion. I have Dana Half.
This was discussion before Jay's motion, but question for Deb, did the county take possession of the brand new paver yet?
Yes.
Yes. Remind me again how much that was?
480,000-ish. Is that right, Chris? I don't remember how much was it, Al?
380 was the number in my head.
Okay, sorry, 380.
Okay.
Al?
And that would be one of the things that I referred to just a few seconds ago that you're eligible to use CHIPS money for. So right now we're talking about using $2.1 million worth of CHIPS for paving. Just remember that because we never have before doesn't mean that we can't. You can also use CHIPS money for that road machinery equipment that we bought. So some of that CHIPS money could be applied to the paver. It could even be applied to the 3 trucks that were ordered. So the $1.1 million in county road machinery, some of that money could be offset by CHIPS as well if you were willing to do a little bit less paving. I just want to make sure that we don't normally have that conversation, but this might be the year to have that conversation if some of the CHIPS money should be used for equipment and not all paving. I know that that's not warm and fuzzy for everybody, but I want to make sure that you all know that it's at least an option so you have all the information when you make your decision.
Thank you, Treasurer. I'm going to go back to Jay Scully, and at the same time, Jay, I guess that may be a discussion you want to hold at DPW, not vetted here. So I'm going to let you go to that, how you want to handle that now.
I was just going to come back on Al, that if we have that discussion, and I think everybody's open to it, we also, what we're not using for paving, remember we're charging back the cost of the paver and the cost of the trucks that are out there doing the paving. So we'll need to have all those numbers, Al, when we're looking at those scenarios.
Understood.
So you would rather vet that at the DPW meeting than right now, and I think
I
that
would
we
think
need that
yes.
information to properly vet it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have more discussion? Al?
Brian, my only concern with sending that discussion back to committee is if you give her 2.1 right now to pave, that discussion's off the table.
Well, in 2 weeks, we probably won't have spent 2.1, and I think Deb's gonna work with us that I'm not totally concerned there, but it is a possibility that the 2.1 could all be spent by then. I don't know if we could spend it that fast just because of scheduling, but.
The motion was to go to the 2.1. It wasn't all for paving, right? It was just to use the 2.1, so that.
Well, scenario two gives $2.1 million for the paving line.
Okay, we need, but
So we may want to vet that right now. Do we want to have a hold on that 380 number? Is that where we're at? Jay?
well, I was waiting for somebody else to kick in there.
I'd say no.
My motion was that, you know, I didn't want to use more money than that 80%. You know, hoping it could all go for paving. But if the committee vets and decides that they think that they want to use some for equipment purchases, I still only want to go to that 80%. So I don't know how you want the motion or the discussion there.
Okay, Matt Hicks?
I don't know if you can hear me, but I would say, don't worry about the paver at the moment in the 380. Tell them to go ahead with the 2.1 and move forward. We'll be able to keep this moving target going forward by the time DPW shows up. Let's just plan on our paving at the moment.
Okay. Cassie, did you have something?
I'd also say that I would go ahead with the paving because, to quote Paul Ferguson, maintenance and upkeep is important. And if we start taking away more dollars from the roads, we're only going to pay for that in the future. I would say let the money stay with paving.
Paul Ferguson, I hope you're listening because Cassie just went full circle with you.
Hey, he's a highway.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Well,
I'm listening.
I got Chris next.
So a potential compromise that might meet all the criteria that was just talked about was 100% of all our funding streams is 2.648 million. The scenario 2 that we're talking about assumes the full 20% reduction of 2.118 million. And there seems to be support and consensus for moving forward with the 2.1 in paving. And then maybe the discussion moving forward is if the stars align, the federal government does something, state gets higher personal income tax returns than they're expecting, and we receive funding above that floor of 2.1 million, maybe the discussion is applying potentially, not saying we should, but the potential of applying whatever we get over the 2.1 toward machinery, so that Deb can still at least do that minimum amount of paving. Because to the points that have been made to Mr. Ferguson and Mrs. Bedler, we don't want to short ourselves on that, but then to the treasurer's point, potentially we could help road machinery fund with that money too. Maybe there's a compromise there is all I'm saying.
Okay, so basically, to clarify back where we are, the 2.1 is what we're gonna say, go ahead, make that happen, and we're gonna go back to DPW whenever our meeting is in approximately 2 weeks. And Al's going to have numbers that look at all the different scenarios and with any updates that we've gotten from state and federal government at that time, and we can look further. And if we can come up with more for paving, fine. If not, the 2.1 will be the number. We can't unpave. So we're there as we had a motion in a second, I believe. So unless there's more discussion from anybody, I'm ready to vote. Deb?
Does this just ultimately take the $592,594 out of our budget by voting on this? Or are you leaving it in there until we know what the whole thing is?
We're just authorizing 2.1 being spent for, that's all we're doing today is authorizing that 2.1 number for paving.
Okay.
So far. We're waiting to let things unwind before we know whether we have to actually remove money. And we may have to. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. We may have to remove money. There might be a lot of places we remove money. If we actually have a $5 million shortfall in sales tax and no funding coming from state or federal government, there's gonna be a lot of changes in money. So this one here actually just locks in the 1.3 million in savings that would offset 1.3 in lost revenue. So this is kind of like the first, everything else is in phases. Let's call this the first stage. And this will get us to DPW with a new set of numbers and a new total alignment. So all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Very good. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks.
County Administrator. We have a few resolutions left too, but those are later.
Those are others. Do you want to
Okay,
announce?
no, we'll do them last.
Okay. So the first thing I have is a couple things for sewer district. We released a bid that was due back on March 11th, and this is for the feeder street in Village of Hudson Falls, gravity sewer rehabilitation for sewer district number 2. Again, we opened the bid on March 11th, and then the world went crazy. So we're to the point where things are starting to open back up, and we need to award this contract. So the low bidder on this, we received 7 bids back. The low bidder was Tech Industries out of Troy, New York, for the amount of $466,760. I've got a letter here from the engineer, and they are recommending, they were the low bidder, this Tech Industries, and they are recommending that their bid was compliant and met all the requirements, and therefore that we should go ahead and award it. So if the committee is willing, a motion to award the Feeder Street Gravity Sewer Rehabilitation Project to Tech Industries from Troy in the amount of $466,760 would be in order.
And this is the actual work?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion by Dave. Do I have a second? Kathy? Any discussion on this? Dana have?
Chris, the sewer district really does not have to worry about revenue because they just tax the user. So it's not like other funding streams, correct? So if we're looking at cutting back on paving and stuff, the sewer district doesn't ever look at cutting back because they just increase the tax on the user, right?
Yes and no. The funding stream for sewer district 2 is there's 2 components to it. One is a usage rate, which oddly enough is based on your water consumption. And then there's an ad valorem, or an added value tax, that if you're in the district and whether or not you're hooked up to the district, your house and your property have additional or added value because you're within the sewer district. So you could conceivably have, if you had a very high user of water that left the district, that would be a revenue hit that the district would have to either cut expenses or change their usage rate to the other ratepayers. But in the normal course of business, the ad valorem works kind of the same way that a regular property tax does. So if you lose a huge amount of valuation, it's spread out over your other taxpayers. Similarly, if you got a huge investment, it would decrease it for your other taxpayers, but the rate stays pretty much the same.
I can't believe that the water consumption has not dramatically decreased with all these businesses closed. One other question, the aid that the sewer district get is mostly in the form of grants. They don't get state aid like the county gets annually. It's awarded as per grant. So they wouldn't be hearing from the government that their state aid is going to be cut by 80% because it's all grants. So a grant is either has been awarded or in the future it will not be awarded. So that would affect their future awards, correct?
Correct.
Down the left. Thanks, Dana.
Chris, just wanted to confirm that this was in their capital project for the long-term control plan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Sue Clary?
With the award contract, that came in before March 11th, their numbers are gonna say consistent and the same, with everything changed? The contractor?
Yes, the contractor will honor the award number.
Okay. Do they have a clause that there is the clause that is over and above that they would add on cost? Do you know what I'm saying?
I have not reviewed the contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, same project, Peter Street Gravity Sewer Rehabilitation. The sewer district is in receipt of a technical change order from the consulting engineer on the project, which is CT Mail Associates from Latham. The technical change order is for additional survey work that they decided was necessary and for on-site construction observation. So the total, it's an hourly for the construction observation, so the total not to exceed fee for all this change order is $64,000. I have spoken to Joe about it. It's reasonable and necessary in his opinion, and so his recommendation is that we go ahead and have a resolution from the Finance Committee to approve and authorize Joe to sign the technical change order from CT Mail Associates.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Dana has.
Sorry, again, I'm slow on my unmute. It sounds like quite a few of these resolutions have not come through DPW committee. We're bypassing the DPW. Normally a resolution comes from DPW to finance, but some of this stuff I have not heard in DPW. I cannot vote here in finance, but I can in DPW.
No, and you got a good point, Dana, and that's why we're gonna get back into the regular revolution of meetings here. We're gonna make it all happen, and hopefully we're gonna start right here after our big board meeting. We're gonna get right back in our rotation the way we belong. So I think this is more time of the essence thing to get it done is the reason it came here directly, and because of what you stated earlier, that the way they do things is more important that we make them happen for them than it is to bring it through DPW. We aren't gonna hear anything different, nothing's gonna be different. But no, I would prefer it came through DPW just like everybody else would. So I just need a motion in a second to finish this one off.
Go ahead.
Moved by Matt Hicks, seconded by Dave O'Brien. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda for me is review and approval of the Workforce Development Board multi-county jurisdictional agreements. So very high-level overview of this. And I think our goal, Roger has reviewed the agreements. We don't have any objections to them. I think our goal is to maybe send those out in the packet for the full board meeting. So there's two things that we need to do. The Workforce Development Board is funded through federal WIOA money. And it's changed a few times, but basically the federal WIOA money flows to Saratoga County. Then there's an oversight board called the Workforce Development Board that's made up of economic development professionals and private entities, or representatives from private business rather. And that workforce development acts as an oversight board for the three counties, Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties, for their workforce and employment centers. In Warren and Saratoga County, the workforce centers are run by the counties themselves with county staff. In Washington County, we have an agreement where we partner with LEAP, and LEAP is the entity that actually runs and mans and administers the workforce, or the opportunity, workforce center. That's what I was trying to come up with. Anyway, so they're not unlike the Regional Planning Board. We have had some issues with the Workforce Development Board recently. There have been, both of the professional staff of the Workforce Development Board have resigned in the last month. The former executive director has come back on an interim basis to keep the wheels rolling, and we're working with him, much more productive relationship. A number of the Workforce Development Board members have resigned, and we're going to work through the membership. In order to appoint members to the board and get these things cleared up and to clear up what the roles of the workforce centers and the counties are, we are proposing entering into a new multi-jurisdictional agreement between the 3 counties and the Workforce Development Board. So as I said, Saratoga and Warren and Washington worked together, drafted new agreements. Roger's reviewed them. We don't have any objections. I would recommend that we move forward with adopting those at the full board meeting on the 19th. And the other thing we have to do is, as one of the participating counties, we have to approve their operating budget. Saratoga County is the fiduciary agent for the Workforce Development Board, so they receive the federal funds, and it's actually in the Saratoga County annual budget, the appropriations and the revenues. Saratoga County, I've been in close contact with the Warren and Saratoga County administrators on this. Spencer Hellwig, who's the Saratoga County administrator, has recommended that given the leadership change from the organization now, he's comfortable with the budget. Saratoga County either has or is going to approve the budget formally for the Workforce Development Board for their fiscal year. And my recommendation would be that we do the same. To the budget officer's point that he made to me yesterday, there is no fiscal impact to the county budget from this action. It is federal money that goes directly from federal government, Saratoga County, to the Workforce Development Board, and then on to LEAP. So it's just that as one of the 3 partner counties, we need to weigh in on it, and my recommendation would be that we approve it as presented.
So we're going to move this to the full board, and that'll be in their packet, the resolution. Is that where we're going?
Yes.
So I need a motion to move that forward so you can see that whole thing in the packet at the board meeting.
Yes, please.
So do I have a motion moved by James Griffith?
Second.
Second by Lester Losa, and Dave O'Brien, and Dana Haas, discussion. Dana, is that where you're at?
Yes, I'm in discussion, if that's okay. Chris, seems like a lot of people resigning here. The ones that are resigning, who serves at the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors? And is there something we need to know why there's so many people resigning?
Well, to make a long story short, some of the people had those positions because of positions they were in, they were no longer in, and they couldn't stay either way. That's the way I got it told to me. Is that kind of correct?
That's part of it, yep. There were some people who had been appointed by their respective Board of Supervisors, and then those individuals, their circumstances had changed. They had changed jobs, or they had changed their residency, and were no longer eligible. There's also, and I think Mr. Nolet can speak to it in more detail. I didn't necessarily want to get into the weeds on this one, but there was a power struggle between the leadership of the Workforce Development Board and the entities that operate the Employment and Opportunity Centers. And basically, the Workforce Development Board was not treating the center directors as partners. They were not including them, letting them have input on the agenda, and they were, frankly, not respecting them as partners, which is really how the WIOA legislation sets it up. And they were, in some cases, being blatantly and flagrantly disrespectful to the counties, to the point where Saratoga County appointed a member to the board who met all the statutory criteria to be a member of the board, and because of some reason that honestly I'm not privy to, the Workforce Development Board Executive Director refused to sit that person as a member of the board. And so I think this is a good example of one of these quasi-independent agencies that was allowed to operate in the background for a long time. And under the previous executive director, it went pretty smoothly. We got a new person in the mix, and it didn't. And it's time to pull in the reins and redirect the organization, which is underway at this time.
Yeah, but of those people, who serves at the pleasure of our board? Does anybody?
I'm not sure if we had any resignations from our appointees.
No, we were kind of the good player here. We were at the good side, as it turns out. The conflicts were really between other counties. Our people were actually just doing their work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we just need to vote. All in favor of moving this to the full board, say aye.
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 Okay. We're approved. We're on to other business?
Yeah, could I have one other before you get
Yep,
into
no,
yours?
go ahead.
So I wanted to make the board aware of something that the state announced to us, I believe it was late last week. So the way if you were to look into your budget and you were to total up the revenue for Department of Social Services admin, you're at, I don't know, just over $14 million or so. The way that revenue works is a monthly claiming process called settlements, where the accounting unit down in DSS goes through all their expenses and claims and hours and all that stuff and submits a monthly claim, and then we get reimbursed from the state for the federal and the state share. I think it was late last week, the state stopped paying monthly DSS settlements. They did it across the state. Every county got hit. And it amounts to roughly $1 million a month for us, give or take. So needless to say, that's a significant cash flow concern for us. And, you know, Al can get into the details of the cash position of the county and stuff. That's his bailiwick, not mine. But a number of my colleagues have been in discussions over the last couple of weeks about, you know, what this means. I think there are three scenarios. The one is that and the most likely is that the state is very short on cash. And this dovetails with the discussion that Al had with you earlier, that I'm cynical. I think the state has sticky fingers with our sales tax distribution, because we are down the exact same percentage in sales tax as Warren and Saratoga County. And to me, that does not make sense, because anecdotally, the UPS guy showed up at my house last night at 9:15. And when I talked to him, because I happen to be outside working, he said, we've never been this busy. We're 3 times busier than we are during Christmas. And so if we look at my family as an example, there are times where, and I apologize to everybody, my family goes to Quaker Road to shop, and we will buy things. Well, every dollar we spend on Quaker Road is 7% that goes to Warren County. 3% to them, 4% to the state. I'll keep it simple. 7% to Warren County. These days, we're not going to Quaker Road. I can't remember the last time I've been to Quaker Road. So my wife is burning up the Amazon account. Well, now every dollar that she spends on Amazon that we would have spent at Quaker Road is 7 cents that doesn't go to Warren County and goes to us instead. And so if we think about that repeating itself across the state, what we should be seeing is a sales tax revenue pattern wherein the more urbanized and suburbanized counties that have the big box bricks and mortar retail should be experiencing a greater sales tax hit than those rural counties that don't have brick and mortar or big box retail. The fact that of all the counties across the state we're all within a percentage of each other means to me that those numbers are artificial. And so I think what really hurt the state was that the personal income tax deadline got shifted off to July 15th. Normally they're expecting that revenue April 15th. It got shifted 3 months on them. They're out of cash. So the hope would be that they're delaying our DSS settlements because they're just simply out of cash, and they'll pick right back up where they left off once they get the cash. I don't think that's a likely scenario. I think the other two scenarios, so one is that they just paused it, they'll turn it right back on, we'll get every dollar that's coming to us. The second scenario is that this is truly a cutoff, that they will not pay us anything anymore because they're out of money. I think given the budget language that was adopted back in April, that's a very unlikely scenario as well. I think what's probably the most likely scenario is they're out of cash, so they cut off our settlements, and what they'll do is at some point in the future, they will announce the percent of our DSS appropriations we're going to be cut, and then will only pay us retroactively for that reduction. So rather than the budget director paying us at 100% until he can get his act together and get the recommended cuts before the legislature, this is a way for him to be able to implement the cuts retroactively before he's actually told the legislature, which I think is a brilliant way around the legislation and the budget, but probably what he's doing. So with that being said, I think we will get some of the money that we're not currently being paid, but I think it will be at a reduced rate for what we should be paid and what is budgeted in our budget. That leaves us with the question of what do we do about that? One thing I'm not asking for action from the committee at this point. It's just something I want to put on your radar. It's a somewhat radical idea, But if you look at the settlements that were being held by the state right now, they're about $1 million a month. Our Medicaid bill to the state is just over $11 million a year. And we pay that in what we call our weekly share. So it's, 52 weekly payments that Al and the accounting unit and DSS coordinate. One option for us to preserve our cash position would be for us to stop paying our Medicaid bill to the state. Now, I have questions into NISAC, and I've talked to a lot of my colleagues about what the ramifications for us as a county would be. And as I think all the board members know, I am not shy about criticizing the governor from time to time. I would not be doing this to put a stick in the governor's eye. I would not be messaging this that, we should never be paying or anything else. Rather, if the governor has to shut off our DSS settlements because the state is in a financial and a cash crunch, that is causing a cash crunch for us. And so I'm not necessarily suggesting that we don't make payments and never pay the state what we owe them for Medicaid, but rather if the state has to hold off on our settlement payments, perhaps we consider holding off on ours to preserve our cash position until such time as we can start getting cash from the state, and in which case we'll settle up with them and pay our Medicaid at the time. I'm looking into what interest and or penalties the comptroller could assess on us if we took that course of action. And I think we would need a lot of dialogue between the board and Al and Roger before we went down that path. But it's something that we're faced with, and we're examining some options to try to deal with. And so I just wanted to keep you all, up to date, abreast of what's going on, and just let you know that this is something that we're kind of kicking around. We're not ready to take action yet. Not asking for any action, but I'd certainly answer any questions if you have any.
Chris, the first thing I want to ask is, time might be of the essence, though, because as we burn through cash, we lack cash flow. So should we be looking to have something at the full board? I mean, that's still, we're a week or so away, whatever it is.
I would love to be able to, if I can get information together to give you a very solid recommendation by then, I absolutely will.
Okay.
It is it's a drastic action to take, and I don't want to take it not knowing what all the ramifications might be. But yes, I agree with you that that is significant. $1 million a month is a lot of cash. Yes, I would like to move, but I want to move judiciously.
Okay, I just want everyone on the board to know that if we can make this happen at our Friday board meeting, that we're going to try to have this ready. If it can't be, or the ramifications are too great, or we haven't had a chance to get through them, and we may end up having a special board meeting. That might be something we have to do. But this is going to be time of the essence. We can't burn through $1 million a month just because the state's out of cash, because in all essence, that just puts us out of cash too, and then we can't operate. So it's going to be a big decision. We don't know what the right decision will be yet.
No, we don't.
And it's not about, basically it's going to be, if you write this, it's going to be this, we're stopping this until the other starts coming, and then we're going to resume business.
And we'll settle up. I don't want to advocate that we're going to not pay them back or anything else. This is not a defiant stance. This is not a political statement. This is survival.
This is survival. Okay. So now discussion. I saw hands. Al, no left.
The only thing that I would add is out of that $1 million a month, it's really about a 38% state, 62% federal allocation. And I don't know how the governor withholds the federal funds to begin with. So I have some concerns about how he's even able to do what he's doing, but he's going to do what he's going to do. But just even when he starts making cuts, if he's withholding this cash for cash flow issues and then will net out his reductions can only be on that 38% that is state aid.
On the state side, okay.
He cannot reduce our federal funding. So that's just something to keep in mind.
That's good information. Sue Clary.
Chris, on the sales tax, they pushed that back from March 20th to June 20th for people to not have to pay it. Could that make a difference with the sales tax?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's one thing, because so June 20th, we could tell whether or not that was caught up and going forward as far as.
Well, so maybe I answered that question too quickly because the March 20th being pushed to June 20th. So what that will hurt is the state's cash position, right? It gets really complicated when you get into what our sales tax receipts are based on what actually happens in the world. Because what they do, especially for your smaller businesses that are quarterly filers or annual filers, there's a lot of extrapolation in there, and they look at historical trends. They've got some crazy calculus that doesn't always make sense to me, and that's why sometimes we'll get a deposit that's either way up or way down from everything that else is around it, and it's usually when they true up, right? So just delaying a payment date really hurts them on a cash basis. If they're doing what they normally do, it shouldn't really hurt us on our direct receipts because our direct receipts are often based on extrapolations and projections anyway. But yes, I think that's a complicating factor in this case.
Yeah, other question on the federal government. I thought they were kind of holding their Medicaid funds also.
Not to my knowledge, because actually, and this is another one to the treasurer's point earlier, in the very first COVID-19 stimulus bill, there was EFMAP, or Enhanced Federal Medicaid Assistance Program money. And that's a formulary whenever it comes down from the federal government. And we were granted $564,000, I think was our number off the top of my head. And that was supposed to go immediately to the counties. But because it's the Medicaid program, it flows through the state first, and we've not seen a cent of that.
So I think you two are saying the same thing. That's what she's saying, it didn't come.
No, the money from the federal government did not come. I thought you said the federal government was holding money, but
No, it wasn't holding it, it was just
money.
it didn't arrive. I
Yeah.
think you were saying the same thing,
Okay.
and I just want to clarify that.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
And also with the FEMA, with the time and a half of saying that, yes, they were going to pay it, now they're not going to pay it. That also has put us into a really difficult scenario. Are we addressing that with the federal government?
Trying, yes.
Okay.
We're trying, and I think earlier what we heard today was like OFA had a certain amount of money. We may have interdepartmental funds that are coming through in different ways that can offset parts of that too, that might make that go away. I mean,
it won't go away.
It won't go away totally,
It won't go away.
but it can really soften what that was. I don't know how we're going to get there because we're going to have to hear from each individual department. I'm going to try to have a department head meeting tomorrow, and we can find where each department is. This is their first week back, so you hate to interfere with them, but I think tomorrow it's time we have the discussions. But yeah, if certain departments have received funds that we can offset things, plus do the other things that they're going to be mandated to do because of COVID, if there's that money there, we will try to maximize those funds so it has the least negative impact on our budget.
Thank you.
So we're going to stay tuned on that?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else with anything there? Okay, on other, I have a resolution Resolution E, which is on the cell towers in the Adirondacks. And as I said earlier in the meeting, I've been working in the Adirondacks for the last year and a half. And if you drove in the Adirondack Park and tried to be on your cell phone, the way their system's set up, when you're in the hamlet, you're on. When you get between the hamlets, you're off. And it doesn't matter which hamlet we're talking about. And there's just, nothing works. And COVID has really put this to a higher level where the school kids didn't have internet, they didn't have cell service. Everything became more impossible in the Adirondacks with the COVID crisis. And all the groups that work in the Adirondacks have got together collectively to hit while the iron's hot and make sure they can get the cell towers at a height where they actually work. Before, the cell tower had to be below the canopy of the trees. Well, we all know how great that works. So this was a joint effort by all the different organizations up there DEC might be the only one that I don't see mentioned on here is in the resolve to get a copy of the resolution. That might need to be changed. And there might be others as we hear back from, Adirondack Park Local Review, or Local Government Review Board and Intercounty and some of those things. But, basically this is an idea. They're doing it county by county. Warren County's leading the charge. This is pretty much a copy of Warren County's with just Washington County's name on it, because we do only have 3 towns that are within the park, and we shouldn't be the leader on this, but we should certainly give full support, especially coming from the inter-county side of things. So I just need a motion to move this and a second.
So moved, Brian.
Moved by James Griffin. Do we have a second? John Rozelle, Matt Hicks. Any other discussion? Dana Half?
Brian, are any of these towers in our county that would affect us in order to increase our sales tax? Will we see more online from our county due to this?
Well, the bigger thing is here, Dana, is in the park, they just don't allow it to put a tower in that works. So it very well could have an impact if they can put one in Dresden or Putnam or Fort Anne. But you have to meet all the criteria of the Adirondack Park to even be able to do it. So right now it's not even allowed. So if we can move in this direction, and there might be an area there, I don't know what area they'll be actually looking to put the towers, but there is an opportunity that maybe that is a chance. We just don't know until they can get to a point where they say, yes, we're going to allow you to build a tower. We don't know if that will be in one of our 3 towns or not. It's whatever's strategic then to the actual company that's doing the tower.
I didn't see this as building new taller towers. I saw this as extending the height of existing towers.
It's probably going to be both, but extending is what they'd like to do. Right now, you can't even co-locate on the tower, so they put a tower behind another tower that blocks the tower that was already there, and that's even an issue. No, this is totally bogus and using the environment as a way to stymie the growth and public safety of the people that live in the Adirondacks. So this is going to hopefully change the height. It's hopefully going to change the total outlook from the people that are trying to govern this so we can move forward. James Griffith.
Brian, I think you said it right there. It's a public safety issue with the amount of increase in traffic and use of the Adirondacks. Any tragic accident that could happen up there, this is a safety issue as far as I'm concerned. So.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Oh, I got Paul Ferguson. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm with I want to say the same thing as James, but I also want to mention that, thank you for putting that into motion, because Dresden is in dire need of a tower, and we have a short tower over in Eulitz that does not do the Route 22 side. So thank you very much for putting that into motion.
And Paul, I got to believe that short tower is because of the APA, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is one of the things we're trying to fix. So thanks for bringing that to me. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Now, resolution F is, I think I'm going to let the chairman of the board go to this one because this involves his town.
Yeah, this involves the town of Kingsbury and the town of Fort Anne. A while ago, we received a request from the United States Board on Geographic Names to support a letter supporting the change of the Halfway Creek to Halfway Brook on the federal maps through the United States Board on Geographic Names. The town of Kingsbury Town Board passed a resolution in support of it. The town of Fort Anne Board on June 8th passed a resolution in support of it. And we'd like to ask the Washington County Board of Supervisors to do the support resolution as well. Warren County has done one. There's no cost or impact to us. It just authorizes and supports the change of the name.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that? So motion to move it? Moved by Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion's carried.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else that the board would like us to talk about? I guess I give Roger Wicks next. Do you have your hand up? No? He's just stretching.
I was checking my watch.
Wanted to see why it took so long. Cassie Fedler. I can't hear you for some reason, Cassie. There
Can
you
you hear
go.
me now?
Yes, we got you.
Okay. I know everything is changing and it's changing quickly and we all need to work as a team. I'm all for all of that. I just hope in the future that we can pull our department heads in just a little bit quicker. We had 3 department heads today that had to think literally on their feet, and I'm not sure that's going to be the best way. If there is some way at all that Chris and Al and Brian and Sam, whoever it is, could reach out to these department heads and at least give them a quicker heads up so that they are a little bit better prepared. I felt bad for Matt. He was totally taken off guard. Gina had a little bit of an advantage. She watched 2 people get caught ahead of her. But I think that we're doing them and us a disservice if we don't give them at least some notice so they have time to creatively think and think outside the box. And, you know, by tomorrow they might have thought of another solution. And I just think it's a disservice if we don't pull them in just as fast as we can. Other than that, I agree with everything everybody's done. And I understand we all have to make changes and do so quickly, but I would just like to see if we could do a little bit better at that next time, because, you know, that's a resource that we might not have been utilizing as quick as we could. That's it.
Yeah, Cassie, that's a real good point, Cassie, and I think communication here is gonna be the real vital role, and just getting back into our rotation of meetings, whether they be Zoom, in person, or whatever. We got to get back to having them when we actually have been having them. And now that the departments are open, that's going to be important anyway. Whereas when some departments were closed, there was a lot less information to pass on because there was no information. Now, as we reopen, we go back into the rotation. You're absolutely right. Communication is where we've lacked here for years. It's not just since COVID. And we all can do better at it, and we need to do better at it, and we will do better at it. I guess that's where I would leave that. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I guess I forgot one, Mr. Budget Officer.
Chris, did you have an update on building operations that you were going to?
So that wasn't the one I forgot, but I guess I forgot. So, just very, very quickly for the board, I won't waste your time. As you all know, we opened to the public by appointment on Monday. We've had some growing pains with the screening of employees. We got some new recommendations through a NISAC webinar that I wasn't able to attend on Tuesday, but KJ over at Public Health did. So we're going to have to change the way we're doing employee screenings yet again, but we're muddling through. I think we're making improvements. I would like to thank the department heads and the staff for their patience. It has been a little hectic. It has been a little disorganized, and I apologize to everybody for that, but I think we're making progress, and so far the public has been pretty receptive to the by appointment only scheme. I had a good conversation with Terry McNall yesterday that she was able to find a new software system other than the one we had discussed earlier that I think is really going to be good for the public and for our department heads to try and facilitate this appointment only model moving forward. Mr. Campbell, you got Mr. Half.
Go ahead, Mr. Half.
Chris, I had an elderly constituent ask me a question about by appointment only. The flyer we have online around says, you know, go to the website, contact that department to make an appointment. A lot of elderly people do not go to websites. There was not a phone number listed. And now I know each department has a different phone number, but can there be something done so that the public who does things by telephone would be able to call a department easier than going to a website?
So I certainly understand the point that you've raised, and I think it's a very valid one. I don't know what the solution to that one is, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, we have the phone numbers listed, but if they can't get to where the listings are. So valid point, and we'll talk through it with the team. Yeah, we'd like to make it as easy as possible for people, that's for sure.
Also, I missed the first 10 minutes of the meeting. Was it stated when the county's coming back to 100%, or are we deciding that at the Board of Supervisors meeting?
We did not discuss it at the beginning of this meeting.
Is there something,
I think,
is there something for the
Yeah,
monthly supervisors meeting?
I think, Dana, what we're doing is we can slowly get back to 100%, but it's not gonna be 50%, 60%, 70%. It's gonna be 50% and growing back to 100. Some people, we still have to self-distance, and we still have to be a certain amount apart and a certain amount of people not in offices. So we may be allowed to go to 100%, but physically can't do 100%. So we're gonna go methodically, and people that are actually doing very well, in fact, I've been impressed with some of the work that I'm getting from people working at home, because it's getting done very fast and efficient. I think the people that are very fast and efficient will stay out the longest, and people that have to be bodies in seats that we need will come back quicker. But it's not going to be a certain day as a certain percentage. It's going to be as it fits that we can get them in. Does that help?
No.
Okay. But it was a valiant effort.
Are we
Bob Henke.
Are we prevented from going to 100% by the governor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's not just from the number, it's also from being able to socially distance.
But that's the governor again.
Right. But it's not just the number, it's also the space. Unless we had outdoor offices. We could have sunrooms.
No, but if 6 feet goes away, you don't worry about that stuff.
Right, but that's going to be a while before that goes away. Mr. Henke.
Not asking for any action right now, but because it's absolute last minute, but the Argyle Town Board met last night, and one of the things we discussed had to do with the sales tax distribution, and it was our feeling that the towns are probably in a better position to collectively absorb a little bit of hurt from sales tax. And we felt that perhaps this year the county ought to consider going either back to the $1 million distribution or 7%, whichever one comes out lower this year. 7% might actually come out to be lower. But that was just what we felt, and I presume some of the other towns won't feel that way, but we felt maybe that would be something that would help out the county a little more than the towns would be hurt.
No.
And there could be lots of compromises there, Bob, but I think another thing would be if it was a cash flow thing, maybe we just take it a little later. I think there's a lot of discussions to be had there. And it was, that's the one time towns and county actually worked together was when that 2% cap came in. We found a way to share some revenue with towns to offset, because there was no way for a town, once you're under a 2% cap, to raise any money because of the size of our budgets. That was a way to get them more money to help them out. It's hard to take that away now in a lot of instances because you can't wean them off it. It's necessary because it's built in the budgets. But there could be a compromise, even if it was just a delay that you didn't get paid on a certain day and you got paid 60 days later. It might not hurt our town budgets at all to get it 60 days later as long as we got it. Some might be in awful dire straits if they didn't get it at all. They don't have.
Al, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Washington County purchases something, the Washington County does not pay any sales tax. It's the citizens of the county that pay the sales tax. So when it comes back to the town, that's the most direct way. It's coming back to the citizens of the county. I don't agree with what Bob is proposing.
Mr. Nolet.
And just so you know, my projections for the sales tax distribution, because remember that period ends 7/31, and I don't expect to see a huge turnaround in our deposits between now and then. So I'm already predicting that you're going to be down 164,000 over last year's distribution already.
That's collectively.
as a whole, you're gonna be down about 164,000. And to me, that's gonna be pretty close to reality, folks.
So that's a $10,000 average, even though it's not equal, but over 17 towns, you're talking about a $10,000 average. Some are gonna be less impacted and some more.
If you know what your percentage of the distribution was last year, you could figure out what your decrease is gonna be.
Yep. Okay. And maybe you can have that for us too, to send out when you do your calculations, and that'll save everybody having to calculate it. That's, just plug it into the sheet.
Just as long as the minutes reflect that I didn't bring it to the finance committee today.
Is there anything else? Kathy Fedler.
Back to Dana's request, and Chris said he was going to try and figure out how to get the phone numbers out to the population. It might be a targeted demographic. 2 ideas is maybe once we come up with the list of numbers that we're going to put out, maybe we could tuck them in with the Meals on Wheels program for a few days. Or maybe if the list is short enough, we can release it to all of the papers, no matter how big or small. But usually for a press release, they don't usually charge. So that might be a way we could get around getting the word out. We put it in one time and people cut it out and put it on the refrigerator. I know they're not great ideas, but one way.
Well, no, it's a great idea, and the other part is we could also get it out to our town clerk so that the local people, if they call their town clerk, the clerk says, here's how you do that. Because if they just had that information, that would help. Sue Clary?
Just a question for other towns. Are you going in and doing paperwork for municipal reopening of your town buildings?
As far as, I guess I need a little clarification, Sue, is what you're actually referring to. I mean, we have one person in the office and we're open. That's all we're doing at the moment.
We had our town board meeting last night also. And it was brought up that, businesses have to go in and do signature and do a reopening plan regarding their businesses. And they actually have to sign paperwork saying that they're going to follow these procedures. It was suggested that municipalities were supposed to be doing it too. I had not heard that. I didn't know anything that we were required to do other than do social distancing and masks. Is there paperwork around? Has anybody heard this?
I'll let Mr. Hankey jump in if he disagrees with what I'm about to say, but on the control room calls, so what you're talking about is what ESD is referring to as the business attestations, whereas before a business can reopen when they're in the appropriate phase, they have to fill out a plan, follow the DOH guidelines, and then they sign and file an attestation with ESD that says they are meeting all the requirements. Every conversation I've been privy to on the control room calls has said that is for private businesses only. Private businesses and nonprofits. Governmental agencies do not have to do that, is my understanding. Mr. Hankey can correct me if he has a different thought.
No, I think that's absolutely correct. I don't think that the municipals fall under the affirmation process at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. I was going by the seat of my pants, but that was the reason I gave last night. So thank you.
Sue, also, I believe if you were a business that was deemed essential before and you did not shut down, you don't have to do this. It's only for people that were businesses non-essential that are now reopening. So if you were going all along, you don't have to worry about it.
That's what I heard. Yes, thank you.
Okay, everyone, we've taken a lot of your time today. If there's anything more, I want to hear it. Deb, go ahead.
Al, I get the funny feeling that's a picture of me behind you. Was that your intention?
I can tell you that
Did you say cliffhanger?
I can tell you that my backgrounds are never by accident.
Thanks. All right, bye guys.
Confirm or deny.
So are we ready for adjournment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're gone. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.